Welcome to today's Research Business Daily Report, where Twitter has disclosed several engagement secrets about the social media powerhouse and its connection to television. And then we have a fascinating interview about big data that you just cannot afford to miss. RBDR is sponsored today and this week by KL Communications, a collaborative research agency specializing in co-creation through its own proprietary Crowdweaving service. The evidence seems to be building and building pretty strongly in favor of a significant impact by Twitter on TV viewing and on TV engagement. The latest data from Twitter itself underscores that belief. About 85% of Twitter users, according to a study, who are active on Twitter during primetime television hours, say they tweet about TV while they are watching. Twitter also claims that when TV shows incorporate a hashtag, the volume of tweets about that show tends to increase by 20%. And half of Twitter users who say they tweet while watching TV actually look up those hashtags to see what others are saying about the show. Next, big data this and big data that. There is a constant drumbeat from businesses about their interest and determination to get all they can from the field of big data. But what if an expert who really knows told you that corporate focus on big data right now and so far is a fool's errand? Well, thanks to our friend Dennis Murphy, we found a true expert in the field who's delivering that message. Indicode Data Solutions CEO Slater Victorov, in a blog hosted by TechCrunch that we are linking to for you, not only states that, but takes the cover off important big data breakthroughs that could very well change the game in the short term. For several years, I've been saying over and over again that the actual innovations that would make big data a potent, valid information tool will come eventually from entrepreneurially driven startups launched by relatively young people. Well, at first blush, Slater Victorov appears to put a check in all those characteristic boxes. So we invited him to join us to explain his extraordinary point of view. If you listen closely, I think you're going to feel differently about big data, both positively and negatively. And take a look at where we are right now.
I do believe that the next breakthrough in big data will necessarily come from a small company, because in many of these situations, experience hurts you rather than helping you. In short, data has become a sign of legitimacy. So companies that otherwise would have a lot of difficulty establishing their repute can say that they deal with very large amounts of data, and it's become almost a stamp of approval. So I think that covers one camp that says that they deal with significantly more data than they do as a method of making themselves seem more reliable. At the same time, there are a number of people who do capture very large amounts of data, but without intention. And it's sort of garbage in, garbage out is one of the mottos of big data. And just because you've captured a terabyte or a petabyte of clickstream data doesn't necessarily mean that that can be used in a productive way.
Why is so much of that data that's been collected so useless?
We've been sold a false narrative where data is useful regardless of the intention that people put behind it. And the reason for it simply is that people have collected data without thought as to what the end use case actually is. One of the biggest disjoints that I find is that data is typically not useful unless it has associated metadata with it. So for instance, simply having 100 million tweets is not useful from a big data perspective. Now, having 100 million tweets with labels that say whether they're about Apple or New Balance, or whether they're positive or negative, or whether they're about sports or television, that is much more useful. But what you'll find is that the number of people that have gone and collected large numbers of tweets without that associated metadata is very, very large, and the number of people that have taken the steps to add those labels much, much smaller.
Is most of the information that you're referring to in this interview social media related data, or are we talking about something more than that?
It is something more than that. One thing that I would say is that this applies to everything that is text and image. Today, it just so happens that the majority of text and image data on the internet is driven by social media.
We're talking about a lot of major end user companies that we all, are very familiar with, although that's not your customer. Your
Yes,
customer is kind of the go-between
absolutely.
that you work with to help end users. Like, why don't you give us a list of some of the end users that are using your information, when
Yeah.
it's actually produced?
Right. So our end information gets provided to users all the way from classic consumer brands like Universal Studios and New Balance, all the way to high-end marketing firms like Weber Shandwick and RacePoint Global.
Okay. And the information you're talking about and the analysis you're able to give them is something that you have shown on a recurring basis to these customers?
Yep, absolutely. Every single one of our users has used us on a recurring basis. We've never lost a customer, and all of our models are trained continuously. The accuracy improves on a weekly or monthly basis.
Our thanks to Slater, who will tell us more in the next issue of Research Business Report about this bustling field. In the meantime, if you'd like to learn more from him, you can email Slater at indico.io. That's your Research Business Daily Report. We've been sponsored by KL Communications, a collaborative research agency specializing in co-creation through its proprietary Crowdweaving service. KL is offering an insightful white paper about co-creation's unique ability to attract greater participation, in particular by highly sought-after creative individuals. So check out the link we've created to review the paper. Have a great research day, and we'll look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow.